It's okay if you get 20 views per video. Just keep going. You guys are crazy.
You have to invest money to make money.
How many leads would you say you've gotten in total?
I would say probably between 100.
Pretty good. YouTube's the ultimate get-rich-slow game, but you build an empire. I would say if you're a new agent and you have no clue what you're doing on YouTube, you're screwed. You're hiring a YouTube CEO, so they better know what they're doing.
You gave me the path and I executed on the path, and that's where the results came from.
Your thumbnail sucks, the idea sucks, your camera presence needs work, you're selling way too early, there's no structure on the video.
Who says that it should take a year? We can collapse that with all the elements that make a YouTube channel successful.
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be very tough. Today, I'm sitting down with Olga, the #1 living in channel in Las Vegas, and she had everything against her when she started. And under 1 year, she got 1 million views, 10,000 subscribers, and she's a new agent, new to YouTube, and you blew past everyone, and now that you're the #1 channel in Las Vegas. And so today, I've got the honor of interviewing her. And by the way, my name is Dylan Liu. I'm the YouTube strategist behind Olga's channel, and let's talk about what you did.
Let's do it. I can't wait.
I'm curious to hear more about your story as an agent. Since I'm not an agent, I don't really understand the agent typical flow, but I think from what I know, it's you go as an agent, you're super excited, you do a bunch of cold calling, you do a bunch of door knocking, you get rejected, realize how hard it is, and you're like one of the 90% of agents that don't make it. But you had a very, very different story. What was your journey? What made you want to do YouTube?
Yeah, so I jumped into the world of real estate in 2023, in the fall of 2023, summer, fall. And prior to that, I had a full-blown 12 plus year career in public relations and marketing. So I have worked with executives, I have worked with business owners, I have worked with so many different people. So I've always been in a people-focused industry where I was constantly working with people, and I really loved that part of my job. And I have always known that that's been my gift. And I also have learned so much about the power of social media, the power of marketing, the power of public relations for whether it was a personal brand or a business. So I've known the power of it. And of course, it has evolved over my time in public relations and in the marketing world. I jumped in right after graduating from college. So from 2010 on, I was very much in the weeds. And so with the invention of social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, everything, there's been so many changes. And I was very much in the weeds of those changes and understanding the value of marketing. So the reason why I bring that up is when I did decide to switch from being in the public relations world, I was actually at that time running a small public relations company that I've had for 3 years. And I worked with conscious entrepreneurs that were making a big difference in the world. But it was just me, and I was starting to feel like I was craving a change, and I wanted to step into something that would allow me to build my brand in a sense. And I have spent years and years helping other people build up their brands. So I wanted to give it a shot. And at the same time, I also was thinking about what industry would I be able to transfer to and still use all of the gifts that I have, my superpowers of working with people, and also take all of my marketing knowledge and my public relations knowledge that I've gained over that 12 plus years. And I arrived at real estate. And when I was starting my career as a real estate agent, I already knew that I wanted social media to be a really big part of the way that I generated my leads. Of course, there's the sphere of influence, which are my friends, my family, the people whom I know. But knowing the power of social media, I knew right out the gates that I was going to invest in social media. Now, the reason why I went the YouTube route, in addition to having an Instagram, is because my husband had a very successful YouTube channel for about 5 years by the time I decided to get into real estate. So I actually saw the impact of YouTube on his career and the different opportunities that it brought for him. And when I was really diving in deeply and thinking about all of the ways to generate leads, which are, door knocking, cold calling, open houses, all of the different methods, I wanted to lean into the ways that felt the most exciting for me, which was being face to face with people at open houses. And then also being creative through YouTube and Instagram and other social media channels. So that's how I arrived at YouTube. And right at the beginning of that journey, my husband and I were in discussions of how we wanted to do it, how we wanted to structure it. And him being a YouTuber himself, and he actually did everything himself for his channel. And it was hard. It was a lot of work, and there's so many different elements that went into creating a video. And so we knew that we wanted to have support with some parts of the process. And magically, we manifested you. And right as we were looking for a strategist to support us, you came into our life. So we basically manifested you.
Yes, I appeared out of thin air. It's kind of like the dream team. I was thinking about like everyone's skills earlier today and how you've got great camera presence. You love talking to people. Your husband's skills, he's amazing with cameras and producing. And that's actually one of my weaknesses. It's like the camera technical stuff. And my side, which is managing the YouTube team, the strategy, what to do, ideation. Since every single person I've worked with in my, strategy career, I've always not operated as a strategist. I'd start off as a strategist, which is like, hey, I'm here to just do consulting. And then they'd bring me further into the team or integrate into as like a operator/creative director. And I've done that with you. Although we weren't ever doing light consulting, it's more just like, hey, I'm in the weeds with you. And yeah, 1 year later, it's brought us to this.
Yeah, I think that having you be in the weeds right out the gates versus doing light consulting is truly the reason for my, what I would call quick success, because 1 year is a very short amount of time in a lot of ways, because I've seen so many other real estate agents who have been making content for 9-10 years who have the exact same metrics that I have in just 1 year. So because you were willing to roll up your sleeves and dive into my business, and obviously that is your approach to how you handle every client. You're not, hey, I'm going to sell you this course and then you're on your own. Because that's the hard part is, yeah, you could distill your knowledge into a course, but can someone apply that to their business without having the support and the in the weeds type of experience that you have provided for us? I think that would be really hard. And everything from how to handle the actual experience of being in front of the camera to the content, what are going to be the videos that are actually going to do well? Like, what are people looking for versus just kind of throwing something up against the wall and seeing if it sticks? Because that's the hard part. I can make 10 videos that are completely off and get maybe 20 views. Yes. I've actually had a friend who said she had a YouTube channel and she did it for 3 years. And I looked at her videos and her videos got 20 views each. And I was wondering, man, how did you do this for that long of time and only get this little views? And I think my first video got like 10,000 views. So because of your approach of really diving in deeply from the beginning, gave me such a great head start. And I really knew exactly where to go. You gave me the path and I executed on the path. You said, do this, and I did that. And that's where the results came from. But it came from hours of us being together and discussions and questions and advice and all of that combined.
I come from the YouTube strategy background. And when I work with like traditional creators that have like several 100,000 subscribers and they hire me, they expect like, okay, my next video better double in views or triple in views. So like the turnaround time for that is very fast. It's like, cool, you hire me, I blow you up. So when I encountered the real estate world where the messaging for a lot of realtors is, it's okay if you get 20 views per video, just keep going year after year. It's like, you guys are crazy. Like, how can you post for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months straight, still getting like 20 to 30, 40, 50 views per video, and you're not growing and just like hammering the same thing over and over and over again. And that messaging is really prevalent within this industry, especially like YouTube for real estate agents. It just blew my mind open. Because I have a lot of experience in other industries and other backgrounds, I just know I have like a leg up in terms of like bringing like modern traditional YouTube strategy into the real estate world. But I think a lot of coaches, they were first to their market on YouTube. So, they're living in channels because there's no competition and there's a lot of people who are relocating to get a ton of leads, and it allows them to grow a channel and sell, be like, hey, look at me, I succeeded. But I think as YouTube goes on and on, like the general trend is more agents are going to get onto YouTube. It's going to get even more competitive and it's going to become even more saturated, and you have to get even better. And this is where having like a high level operator with you who understands the game really deeply is going to become even more and more important. So if you like zoom back down to 2020 in Dallas, Texas, there's no competition. You can post whatever the heck you want and you can make like the crappiest videos ever and you blow up. But now you have to be better. And so that's a strategy I actually took with you, because when I looked in the Las Vegas market, there was a bunch of other Las Vegas channels, and you're also competing with a lot of lifestyle creators. So like the first 10 videos that we did, it wasn't actually doing anything like super crazy, but it was like, the pros and cons, top 8 neighborhoods. But when people say strategy, all it is, there's no silver bullet, but there's the 1,000 golden BBs. And it's like, how do we make better titles, better thumbnails, better lighting with Johnny, and better shooting, better camera presentation. And it's like us three of your husband knocking out like the amazing studio, you having amazing camera presence, and me having the strategy, the editing, then like the topic selection. That just makes it so I knew that we would just be better than the competition. Even if you look up pros and cons, like top 8 neighborhoods, you still pop up even today, even those videos that we made 1 year ago. And if you look at the view graphs too, you're still accumulating views from those videos because they're super evergreen. And it's because our videos are still better than the rest of the competition.
Yeah, I think starting YouTube is definitely a challenge. And I talk to a lot of agents as part of my EXP community who are so curious about YouTube, who are interested in it, but they definitely see, once they have the conversation with me, that it's not just turning on a camera, filming, doing a quick edit on your computer and posting it, right? Gone are the days of filming in your basement with poor lighting and an iPhone and still getting a lot of views. There's a lot that goes into it. And I actually knew this going into YouTube at the beginning because my husband explained to me that it is so different than the content that people post on TikTok. It is so different than the content that people post on Instagram. And just like channel to channel, there's differences, right? Like TikTok, you could be eating a sandwich, putting on makeup, and the phone is pointing at the ceiling and people will still watch that video for some reason. Yes. Whereas on Instagram, you do have to be more polished with reels. There's different things. And on YouTube, you have to have good audio first, good lighting. You have to be engaging on camera. You have to hook the audience right out the gates. You can't be, doing something random because you really only have a couple seconds of someone's attention. And before any of that even happens, you have to have a good thumbnail that will actually make them go to your video. Yeah. So there's so many logistical elements that go into YouTube that I think this is just where it gets very difficult, and where having a strategist, someone that really gets all of the elements and how to piece them together, is extremely important. Of course, I could have likely done a good job given that I had my husband as a resource, or if I had hired a videographer that knew how to edit, someone that was a professional, right? I think it's important to remember you can't do everything as part of this process. And if you try to, it's likely going to make your growth very slow and your life very difficult and stressful. If you're a real estate agent who's trying to learn how to use editing software as well as cameras, lighting, and all of that. But the way that I look at our partnership up until this point is you've helped me collapse the time that it takes to get to this point. We did this in 1 year because of the resources that you bring, that my husband brings, the editing team that is able to take my content and edit it in a way that's so impactful, that's so interesting to the audience. I always get comments on how interesting my content is and how cool the graphics are. And that person is a specialist in editing real estate YouTube content. So I think that it is really important to work with specialists to help you collapse the time to getting those views, getting the clients calling you because they see you as a professional who's investing, obviously, time and money into this content. I'm not walking around with a selfie stick with an iPhone. And even if I did in one of my videos, this is how the saying goes. You have to invest money to make money. So I know the value of investing in a YouTube team, a YouTube strategist, a YouTube editor to get me to where I want to get to faster.
With all that you know now, with all the success you have, what would you say are your top 3 tips for agents who are thinking about getting onto YouTube?
I think that getting onto YouTube is, first of all, a really great decision. But there has to be a little bit of research and preparation that goes into it. So the first and a really important thing that I've learned actually through working with you is understanding the market that you're in and the market that you're going to be creating YouTube videos in. Now, I actually didn't know that Las Vegas was one of the hardest markets in the country to break into as a realtor on YouTube,
Yes.
along with Dallas, Houston, and Tampa. So the market makes a huge difference, and how much competition you're going to have and just how good your content has to be for you to be one of the things that you mentioned earlier, different, better, or new. So how do you enter a market and be in one of those buckets? So it's important to understand where you're at, right? Are you in Phoenix that's still competitive, but maybe not as competitive as Las Vegas, Dallas, Houston, where a lot of the big real estate agents that are well known that are now selling courses, right? That are celebrities at this point. If you're in a small town in Oregon, it might be a little bit easier because not that many people are doing YouTube. So then you might immediately have the full market share. So that, I would say that's the biggest thing that I've learned from you is understanding your market and doing that research of how many living in insert city channels are there, how many lifestyle creators are there. So how much already is there that you're going to have to be competing with. And the second thing, I think it's so important to have an understanding what kind of content you're going to create. So if I were to do this all over again, I would hire you in a heartbeat to help me with this strategy, because I distinctly remember recording one video before I met you, and it was a tour of this beautiful penthouse in Las Vegas. And my thought actually was that I was going to be creating tours of luxury properties. Now, it's actually a lot harder than you might think to get access to these luxury properties, especially as a newer agent that doesn't have this roster of properties as part of her team or his team. I was not on a team. I joined eXp Realty as a solo agent. So I was really navigating the world of real estate from the early stages. So I would say I didn't really have the strategy. And when I was thinking of, okay, now I did this tour of this penthouse, what's my second video? I felt very lost, and I felt very unsure of which path to go, because like you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of different paths. There's the creators and realtors that do tours only. There's realtors that do the living in content. There's realtors that do the market updates. There's realtors that do doom and gloom content of, oh my gosh, here the world is falling apart, and it's the content in every video. So which path was I going to take? I wasn't exactly sure. I was likely going to try a little bit of everything. That was the strategy. Why not try this kind of video and this kind of video and then see how they perform? So when you came in, it's like I got instant clarity on what I needed to do for the first 10 videos. Having someone that knows YouTube strategy that can help you at least understand the different paths that are available and help you structure your content, especially at the beginning, because it takes a bit to understand what is the best way to structure a video. I mean, I will recommend you all day, every day, because I've had such an incredible experience, but a strategist is absolutely key. And the last tip that I have is making YouTube and filming your content a priority within your business. As real estate agents, we do so many different things. And obviously a primary thing of what we're doing is connecting with clients, showing clients homes, taking calls, setting up searches. So there's so much of that type of work that could prevent someone from prioritizing filming YouTube videos. And when I say prioritizing, I say filming at least 1 to 2 videos a week. So you have a pipeline of content that your editor can work on, because posting once a week I think is kind of the bare minimum in order to actually see growth and to show YouTube consistency, and also to show the people who are watching your content that you're consistent. Creating one video a month is likely not going to get you anywhere, and it's going to be a big waste of your time, because filming one YouTube video could take up to 8 hours depending on what the video is. Of course, for me now, there's a range, everything from 45 minutes to 8 hours, but it's prioritizing YouTube as the main thing that you do in your business. So if that means hiring a showing partner to show homes when your clients are in town, because some days I will show homes from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and there's really no daylight left to film a YouTube video. And then when it gets really late at night, it's also really challenging. So you're really fighting a lot of the elements of the real estate job to film a video. And that's when I talk to agents who are having a hard time with their current YouTube channels. One of the things is consistency. They're having a hard time finding the time to film videos because they're busy with clients. And I understand that all too well. So it's really structuring your business where you can have support with the other elements of the real estate job, whether it's a showing partner or a transaction coordinator to help you do the paperwork, so you can focus on filming YouTube content, because that is the thing that it's going to get you the leads at the end of the day that are going to turn into clients. But it just has to be a priority. It can't be a part-time thing where you film one video a month and you call it a day. It's just never going to go anywhere. I would say minimum is one video a week that is going to be posted on the channel to gain that momentum and traction that you need to, going back to the other point, compete with the other agents who are in your market. And you're likely going to have competition in your market unless you are in a tiny town where you're the only agent and the only YouTube channels. I have so many more tips, but those are the top 3 that I would say are the most important. I'm curious, Dylan, from your perspective, if you were to speak to an agent that's watching this interview and they're wondering, what would it take for me to get started in YouTube? What would you say to them?
The first thing I would say is, if they're thinking about it, I say, don't do YouTube. And then afterwards, if they come back to me a week later and they're still posting, then I'm like, okay, now I'm willing to entertain it, since basically it's like a test to see their conviction levels. Because if you're thinking about YouTube and I say it's hard, don't do it, you don't do it, good. Because you're not going to make it. YouTube's the ultimate get rich slow game, but you build an empire. And you're going to have ups and downs and anxiety in the very beginning. It's going to suck. And I'd say every agent that I work with, YouTube is like at least 80% of their business, at least. And it's because, it's like those are the best quality leads. And eventually they get so many leads where it's like, okay, it's like all from YouTube or referrals from YouTube. And it's just a game of focus. If there's one agent that's fully focused on YouTube, there's another agent that's not. Well, the one that's fully focused on YouTube is naturally going to dominate that. And so, I was talking with a realtor this week, and he asked me I'm doing Instagram and YouTube, and I don't know what to do. I'm like, don't do YouTube, just do Instagram. And less you can get away with doing YouTube part-time. Maybe you're from the middle of nowhere, small town, there's no other agents competing. Yeah, you can get away with it part-time. But over time, more and more agents are being onboarded onto YouTube. And in general, that's just the trend of business in general, where everyone has their own little personal brands. You can even see these small little local dentist shop, and they have their own TikToks, and that's how they get leads for their business. And more and more, it's important for agents to have their own personal brand. I honestly think it's not going to get easier. YouTube's only going to get harder and harder. And I think especially if you're in a tough market like Dallas, Texas, and you're a new agent and you're wanting to get into YouTube and you're using some cookie cutter living in copy paste strategy, you're screwed. There's 1,000 other channels that are doing the living in strategy. Unless you're really, really good on camera, you've got an amazing team, you also have the budget to support the team, and you can somehow differentiate yourself, then maybe you can do it. On the topic of differentiating yourself, there's one realtor I work with in Houston, Texas, and something she says, it's genius, and it's amazing at poaching other people's, other realtors' leads, is in the video she'll say, hey, if you give me a call, you'll be talking with me, you'll be working directly with me, and I'm not going to pass you off like some other agents. And in that market, it's ruthless competition. It's one of the guys who started the original living in strategy. And essentially, so the audience will watch both channels, and if you say, if you call me, I'm not going to be like some of those other agents on YouTube that just immediately pass you off. And it gets her a bunch of leads to make the decision to call her instead of the other agent. The game's getting more and more competitive. and it's not going to stop.
It's interesting that you say that because I get obviously a lot of calls from YouTube on a weekly basis. There are a lot of people that are thinking about relocating to Las Vegas. It is just one of those markets right now where a lot of people are moving here for a number of different reasons. But one thing that I hear very often is how people are surprised that it's actually me who messages them back or picks up the phone because they almost don't expect it. And if I'm in a meeting, I will always text the person back, or if I'm with a client, which I am in a car with a client talking about Las Vegas. So I will text them back as soon as I can. And I say, hey, this is Olga. How can I help you? I'm currently busy. And people are very much shocked that they get that personal level of communication right away, that I'll usually give them a call back. I'll have a great conversation with them. I'll either get them on the phone or on Zoom, just depending on their comfort with being on video, depending on where I am. Sometimes I'm in a car and I take the call, so obviously there's no Zoom. So they already know me because they've already seen a lot of my content, so they can tell the kind of person that I am, my personality, whether or not we would be a fit. But after that conversation, they do feel like, wow, she's going to be the one taking care of me. She's going to be the one to show me around town, and it won't necessarily be passed off from that first conversation. And of course, there's some days where I have multiple clients in town. So I do have a small team that supports me. I have a showing partner. I have a transaction coordinator that is so great at the paperwork part. So sometimes we will need to send an offer as we're walking out of a home. So, I can't be writing an offer and then driving to the next house. So I do have a small but mighty team behind me that will sometimes support me if I'm not able to be with clients. But I am there for the parts of the process that are the most crucial. Now, of course, my showing partner can open a door for my clients, of course, but what I help with is the strategy on where my clients should look based on their personal preferences, the strategy on bringing an offer, because a lot of times my clients are coming from different markets. I just now helped a buyer get into a property that was coming from North Carolina, and their market is absolutely crazy. They have to bring at least asking price, if not $20,000-$30,000 above asking price to get into a home. It is not like that in Las Vegas. So I'm also providing them guidance on how to structure the offer. I'm negotiating. I am making sure that everything is done as part of the process where their earnest money deposit is protected. I'm in touch with them on a regular basis. They can call me or text me on my mobile number, and they're not getting, the administrative assistant at my office that will, they'll never get to me type of thing. So it's a white glove approach where I keep the personal touch and my clients know that I'm there for them. And I think it does make a difference. And I've actually had clients tell me that they originally were working with another agent that they met through YouTube that stood them up, that didn't even show up to an appointment that they scheduled with the agent. And it makes me wonder, was that a mistake, or was that they just have too many clients and they're no longer able to provide that service? And of course, I have no idea who that person even is or what the story is, but I do think that it is a really important element of making yourself stand out, and that whoever your client is that's doing that, that's answering the calls in the hot market. I'm doing that too here in Las Vegas, and I do truly believe that that is one of the things that makes me stand out from the other agents.
What would you say for you is the hardest part about doing YouTube?
I'm going to answer that in two parts. So there were difficult parts of it at the beginning, and there are difficult parts of it now. And there is some crossover. I would say in the beginning, the hardest part of doing YouTube for me was the actual delivery of content, talking to a camera and acting like that the camera is my friend or my client, someone that I would talk to normally to without being nervous or talking slower or faster or talking in a different intonation that sounds like I'm doing a presentation. So being natural, I guess, being natural in front of the camera, because at the end of the day, it's not a very natural thing if you've never done it before, and it could take some time to feel natural. And because it took me a bit to feel natural on camera, the first few videos, I definitely struggled. And I felt like I wasn't able to communicate in the way that I would normally be able to communicate if I was just in person with a friend or a client giving that same information. So I was worried always about not coming off in the way that I wanted to. And I struggled with that because there was no way to get past that except for just keep doing it. So I wanted it to be easier. There were a few times where I would film a video and I would cry because I felt like it was the worst video I've ever recorded, and it was just going to be terrible and people weren't going to watch it. I had all these defeated thoughts about it because of the experience of recording that video and how many times I would say the same thing over and over, or I would say something that was a totally wrong piece of information because I was trying to memorize something and it just didn't come out the right way. And it would also take a long time at the beginning. Not only was I trying to be myself and sound natural, but the video would also take 4 or 5 hours to record. So by the end of it, my brain was so spent from the energy it had just exerted that it just felt like it was never going to get easier. And one day it just did. So that's the hard part at the beginning. And now the hard parts about YouTube are still there are some videos that are just more complex to execute. And I now have an expectation that it should be easier for me to execute videos and not have frustrating moments, and that it should be more of a breeze. And so that's where I struggle with now. I have this like bar set for myself that I should be not having those struggles. And when I do have a video where I'm kind of stumbling through it, or I'm recording it and it's late at night and I'm not feeling my best, I do start to beat myself up a little bit. But I think it's really important to just to get through it. Remember that the magic happens in the editing, and that the video is still probably going to come out great. If you have a great editor, they always manage to just pull out the magic and cut out the moments of frustration and make it something great. But it's giving myself grace to have harder videos and not beat myself up over it and not feel like, okay, oh, you're horrible again and you should quit, having those kind of thoughts. And I recently had one of those videos and it was really hard because I felt like it should be easy at this point. And I think it's just a great learning lesson. Like, YouTube is the long game. And that's the mindset that if someone's coming into this, it is probably going to be really hard at the beginning. And it is going to be really frustrating. And you probably will feel like you are really bad on camera and it is challenging and all of those things. And that's totally normal. And I think it's also totally normal to have moments where there's struggle like a year in or 2 years in or 5 years in. So, and the other thing too, that's difficult is I am a solo agent. So I'm doing every part of the job by myself on my own with some support, but it's also fitting in the videos and making sure that I am consistent, because for me, that's the biggest priority. And I know that that is the most important thing, is to film the content. And there are some weeks where I have clients in town every single day. And so it's finding that time to make sure that I actually create the content in between the busy days, because especially in the winter, it would get dark at 4 p.m. So if I was trying to film a video, I had to start earlier in the day. And so there is that balance between doing the job of a real estate agent and then doing the job of the YouTube content creation. So it's having that time also, and carving out that time and prioritizing it sometimes could be a challenge.
What would you say, how many leads would you say you've gotten in total?
Hundreds.
Do you have an estimate?
I would say probably between 200 and 300.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
What was the most amount of reach outs you've gotten in a single week?
Single week, I've probably gotten between 15 and 20 reach outs. And that happened after I had a video post the day before Christmas, and it was about the biggest developments that were coming to Las Vegas. And that video went viral. Yeah, it now has over 100,000 views. And that is the most activity that my phone, email, and my CRM has ever had. And it was the week between Christmas and New Year's. And I had planned on taking it easy that week and just relaxing and enjoying the holidays with the family. And it was just funny because it was like that was the week where it just caught on fire and the leads were coming from every channel. And these leads are very qualified. They're people that were looking to move to Las Vegas, come to see homes in 2 weeks, looking to move in 3 to 6 months. So they weren't just, people like, oh, I'm just casually considering. So yeah, that was a fun week. It definitely had me rethink everything and had me rethink my processes and how I wanted to structure my business moving forward, because it made me realize if that was going to be the flow of leads moving forward, I needed to have my real estate business really set up like a business and have support in certain areas so I could continue to create content, so I could continue to have that face-to-face time with clients and be the one that still answers their calls. So systems, processes, things like that. And I think when things really start to uptick is like when those things really need to be implemented.
How do you manage to deal with all those leads, like CRM, follow-up? Like, what's your system? What's your process?
I would say there's no magic answer that I have yet. But what is really important is carving out the time to check on all of those channels. So running that as a business. So not as they come in or being casual about it, but being more systematic about it. So for example, I have my time in the morning that I allocate to personal things like working out, having breakfast, making coffee, but then jumping into response time, right? Because speed to lead is very important in real estate. And on YouTube, it's one of those things sometimes. People will call one agent that they watch on YouTube, but then they'll call another one if the agent doesn't get back to them. And this happens all across real estate, but it's the speed to lead. So prioritizing time every morning to check everything that's inbound, that's coming in, in the afternoon, and being responsive and setting up the time to talk to those people. I think it's the scheduling in of that, and it's also automating the follow-up with those people that's really important, making sure that my CRM is organized, making sure that the people who are in the CRM are also having a touch point from me 2 weeks in, a month in, 3 months in. So being systematic with the business versus just doing ad hoc, like, oh, let me just text this person who I haven't thought about for 3 months, but they just popped into my mind. And of course, I was in my first year, I was doing a lot of that. I'm still really working on that. I am surrounded by a lot of incredibly smart and systemized real estate agents as part of my EXP community who really preach the value of systems and schedules and just doing the same thing on repeat and really treating everything like you're seriously running a business. I think that's what it is. It's being very serious about all of those elements because it's so easy to miss an email, miss a call. So I think it's just being regimented, systemized, and carving out the time to touch base with the leads, and also creating automations where you don't have to use your memory as the only thing that you're leaning on to have communication with leads. But it's tough. I don't have it all figured out by any means, but it has been a huge priority of mine for this year is to have a system for everything.
Out of like the 200 to 300 leads that you've gotten over the last year, what do you think that'll actualize into the dollar amount?
Yeah, so of course the first year was under 200,000 because it actually took a bit for the leads to start coming in. I would say it took 2 to 3 months. So it didn't take a year. I feel like I heard that coming in from other people. Well, you got to give it a year, right? So this is where it's so cool working with someone like you. We collapsed that time. It doesn't have to take a year. Like, who says that it should take a year? We can collapse that with all of the parts of the business that we've talked about, the strategy, all the elements that make a YouTube channel successful.
The only reason why it takes a year is because it's poor execution, and most realtors, they just don't know what they're doing in terms of YouTube. Like, again, with several other people that I've worked with, for Brian, it was like within the first 3 months, we 4x'd his views, which then 3x his leads. And then after 10 months of working together, we went from 150K to ending with 550K GCI. And this year, he's on track to increase it by like end the year with around like 750 to 850K GCI. It is about like strategy and proper execution. And like you can be consistent, but if you're consistently executing on a poor strategy, you're screwed. I see a lot of realtors doing that, and it breaks my heart.
I talk to a lot of agents who reach out to me who either have a channel and it's not producing the results that they want, or they're thinking about starting a channel and they're either getting information that is not valuable to them from other sources, or they don't know where to go. And so I actually love being a resource for agents and letting them know the important parts of it. And of course, I always talk about the importance of a YouTube strategist being in the mix. And I always hype you up because you've made such a huge impact on my journey, and I'm just getting started. I'm like just past year 1 in the YouTube streets. So I can't even imagine what we're going to be looking at the end of year 2 and then beyond. So my prediction is that the leads that I've gotten from YouTube are going to at least double in GCI for this year, at least double, if not triple. And I'm just so excited for year 2 and to see how everything shapes up, and just to continue this process, and also to continue educating agents and letting them know that it doesn't have to take that long, and what are the things that they can do to accelerate their journey. Just because I think the kind of leads that you get from YouTube as a real estate agent, or the kind of leads that I've gotten from YouTube, and I know that this is true for other agents who are successful on YouTube who I've talked to, these people are so excited to work with you because you've already provided them with so much value. They've binged watched maybe 20 or 30 of your videos. They already know everything about you. They want to potentially be your friend after the process is over. I can't tell you how many clients have turned into friends. And I actually recently sat down and spoke to one of them for my channel. And it was just so cool to have that relationship. And she came from YouTube. And these are definitely people that are already excited about you as a person, you as a professional, you as someone that's provided them that value. And a lot of them have their affairs in order. They have a pre-approval, they have proof of funds, they know what they want, and they want you to be their guide. And when I get on the phone with those people, the conversation is so great. It's like it already is flowing naturally. I don't have to sell them on me as an agent. They've already gotten a lot of value from me because I've put in hours and hours and hours of value out on YouTube for them to consume. So by the time they get to me, they already have so much information and they know a lot about the process and the neighborhoods and what I'm like to work with. And there's that trust that's already developed. So it is a really amazing investment, and you end up working with a lot of people that are just great people that find a connection with you on a human level as well as a professional level. We've talked about strategy a lot, and I know that that is something that so many agents want to know that are considering getting into YouTube, because obviously it's the first step. It's determining what's the path, which path am I going to go? What would you have to say about the topic of strategy for agents? How do you determine which path an agent should take? Obviously, there's a lot of channels that are just mimicking what other channels are doing, and there's nothing wrong with that because it works. That content works. But what is your approach to strategy as a whole, if you could just break that down?
I would say if you're a new agent and you have no clue what you're doing on YouTube, copying what's already successful is actually a good start. Though caveats, it's like, if there's like 30 other agents that are doing the exact same thing, all copying this exact same thing, it's probably not the best move. But like, if there's only 5 other agents within your market that are doing YouTube, you have no clue exactly what to post, then I would go ahead and go with copying someone else. I think that is the best move. But in general, like my approach to strategy is I have a lot of experience in other fields than just real estate. Most of my background comes from just working with creators that have like several hundred K subscribers or like million subscribers, and following those trends off on YouTube, turning that into actual videos and innovating within the game. So with you, how I started was just how do I play the game better than every other agent, which is since I know the living in strategy works and I know I can execute on it better. And that way I can play it safe and guarantee Olga's success. And once we're there, we can innovate and afford to take even more risks. So for example, like a video on your channel that we haven't posted yet, it's that podcast that you did with that client. It's going to be edited and packaged in a way where it's following the trends of YouTube, which is basically like video podcasts are exploding on YouTube. There's this big channel called Diary of a CEO that's like the pioneer for a bunch of other podcast formats. So because I just watch like a ton of YouTube, I'm like always tapped into like what's the most effective strategies. I'm like, cool, we can use that applied to real estate. And we can use whatever this is applied to real estate. A lot of people will just like ask me, like, what's my silver bullet? And it's just like, I've been doing this for 6 years. I've got like 10,000 hours in the game, and I just kind of know what works and what doesn't. I can just take a look at a thumbnail and be like, this sucks. Here's why. Here's how to fix it. And same with the video. If you send me like a channel, like any agent's channel, I'd be able to be like, okay, cool. Your mistakes are your thumbnail sucks, the idea sucks, your camera presence needs work here, you're selling way too early to build more comfort rapport, you're talking too many closed loops, you got to continue to engage, there's no structure on the video. And also, you're telling them to like, subscribe, and do all this dumb stuff when the thing you should be doing is to telling them to call. I just gotten a really strong sense at YouTube in general, especially since before, when I was working with a bunch of different creators as a fractional YouTube strategist, I'd pull knowledge from a bunch of their niches, but I have to learn the niche of gaming. I have to learn the niche of business. I have to learn the niche of podcasts. I have to learn the niche of self-improvement. But now I've specialized all into like serving real estate agents, repeating into the same problems over and over and over again. It allows me to compound a lot more of my knowledge in a much faster rate. It's like, okay, cool. I can just look at a channel instantly. This agent that I work with over here has the exact same problem. Here's how you solve it. I think that's truly what makes me very effective, is that the fact that I do work with multiple agents, and that it's not my first time solving these problems. Like, no, here's a blueprint on how to solve it. And like, and if I have questions, then it's like, hey, agent, you should probably talk with this agent, or call the agent and be like, hey, this is what they're going through. How do you solve that specifically? For example, like even like very small stuff. I remember working with agents that have lower budgets, and how do they shoot like a driving tour video where they're in the car and they don't have like a videographer? Like, how do you get around that? And since I know like can always produce like very high quality videos with the edits, the way I would get around that is you buy one of those things where you stick on your window on your car, you have your iPhone, you install a certain app that allows you to both record outside and you're inside. And this way you can shoot like a driving tour video on a budget of like $20. And that's like logistically very difficult to do. And when most people would want to hire a videographer, a lot of agents also screw up in terms of like hiring and allocating their resources too. Since a lot of agents, they like new agents, they'd want to go into YouTube like, cool, I should hire a videographer to help me out, and then I should hire a script writer. They only have like a budget of like $3,000. When in reality, I feel like a videographer should actually come as one of the last hires. If you have good editing, then you should be fine. To me, like the hiring structure should be like, the first hire should probably be an editor to buy you back time. The second hire should probably be a thumbnail designer that is competent. The third hire, I'd say, is a strategist, or if you have a very good strategist, you should hire that, and they'll be able to quickly onboard those two. I think those are like the first like 3 critical hires, and that's like all on the YouTube side. And then there's a bunch of like hires of like transactional coordinators, like showing partners. That's all like the real estate side that I'm not as familiar with. I think the biggest thing is like the word strategist is very vague, but essentially you're hiring like a YouTube CEO, so they better know what they're doing. And the best way to figure out to see like if they're good or not, since there's a lot of people who sell stuff, it's talk with their current clients or past clients. Did they get fired a lot? Did they not? Did they stop working with a lot of people? Why? Because if a business relationship is truly good, then like, why would you stop? And I think that's the best way to figure out like if things are working, if they're actually competent or not. Because if anyone's going to hire me, you should talk to the agents I work with. Say like, hey, is he real? Is he some fake guru? Is he legit? Yeah, you have to do your research on anyone that you bring on.
What would you say are the top 5 mistakes that you consistently see agents make on YouTube?
For beginner agents, the top 5 mistakes are bad video ideas, bad titles, bad thumbnails, bad hooks, and then I'd say not actually having a strong enough call to action and messing that up. And so every single one of those points, it's like huge in pieces of leverage. And that's why I'm like very confident when I look at a channel, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a channel I know I can 3x within 3 months. Because like the most basic mistakes, if we fix this, those are beginner agents. I'd say now for like, if you're making 100K or more from YouTube, then the next top 5 mistakes would be having a strong selling point. Hey, here's why you should work with me. I'm a great agent because of this. I'm a retirement specialist, or I'm a top 1% realtor. I'm the #1 solo agent in blah, blah, blah. And those are authority statements that'll win you the lead over other agents. And you need to do that in more competitive markets. So the second mistake is, say it's just like still poor YouTube strategy. Even those people who are making like 100K per year off of YouTube, I mean, those are actually my favorite people to work with, because I'm like, cool, you get YouTube, you're already making money. Okay, let's get you to 400K this year. Easy. Yeah, and like they also like generally, if they're a lot more competent, they're a lot more structured. So I'd still say like the YouTube strategy also sucks. I'd also say not delegating enough. Eventually, after you hit like maybe 200K in GCI, in my personal opinion, I feel like the agents that I've worked with the most, that are the most successful, they scale themselves out really well by having a showing partner, having multiple agents underneath them, by having amazing follow-up systems. And the fourth mistake is not having a strong enough follow-up system. So the best follow-up systems I've seen is basically you have an email newsletter, and on top of that, you're able to capture the phone number and email. And so if you can capture like their phone number and email, and you have like an automated newsletter plus like text messaging them, hey, like checking up, I think that's also another elevation. And I'd say last mistake that people make is, I'd say, being complacent. You know, you have an agent within your market, Stacy, like Las Vegas gal, and she's been making YouTube videos for over 9 years. And within 1 year, we have got more subscribers than her, way more views than her, and we've outgrown her a ton. And it's because she hasn't innovated. And she's like maybe like innovated kind of here and there, but not really. And essentially, the reason why I only work with one agent per market is because when I bring them to the top of the market, that's where life gets really good, where all the leads are coming to them, making all the money, and it's easy to stay at the top. But if you get complacent, then you lose your position really quickly, and it's hard to get back there. And so people that don't innovate, that aren't constantly improving, they're just like, I can just do the same house tour strategy over and over and over again. Like, yeah, that might work for like a year or so, maybe 2, but like over time, if you're not innovating, constantly improving, someone's going to do better. So it'll work in the short term, but I mean, in general, things are getting more and more competitive. You have to optimize your follow-up, optimize everything. And if you don't, it becomes a tough game. I'd say those are my top 5 tips for people who are advanced versus beginners. Yeah, and there's a lot more like nuanced, small things. And as people get more and more advanced, there's like more customized solutions. Like, okay, you're really great on camera, but you do this really poorly. Let's fix this. Or it's like, you're really great on camera, but your studio still looks like you record in a dungeon. We need to fix that. So for beginners, it's usually the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. The hardest part is the agents know, oh, my thumbnails suck. Oh, my titles suck. Oh, my videos suck. But they don't know actually how to execute. Because everyone will say the YouTube theory of thumbnails and titles are important. And they get it, but it's like, how do I fix it? Like, what's the thing? That's why I don't really want to sell like a course or anything. I'll just do it for you. Because that's what I found consistently throughout my entire YouTube strategy career is I can do consulting, sure. And most likely you're not going to know how to implement it, or you're not going to listen to me, and I'll just do it for you. And the more involved I am, the more I know I can just guarantee the agent success.
I think that's really cool. And what makes you stand apart is you want to create a partnership with the agent, and you don't want to just give them something that is a packaged up, one size fits all approach that they should try and see if that's going to work for them. Because like you said, there's new agents that are new to YouTube. There's seasoned agents that are new to YouTube. There's seasoned agents that have been on YouTube for a long time, and there are different challenges for all of those different agents. And so what I'm hearing you say is that you customize your approach to the agent depending on where they're at in their real estate journey, their YouTube journey, and what mistakes they're making, what their struggles are. That's how I think it should be. And that's what I've heard from a lot of agents that doesn't work, is they buy a course and they think it's going to solve all their problems. And then they're in the same place 6 months later and they don't know why. That's the thing. They don't know why, because they don't have that support. That's the one-on-one where you're analyzing what's wrong. Because from the perspective of someone who doesn't know, they're never going to look at something and understand what the issue is.
Yeah.
But for someone with over 10,000 hours like yourself, you can look at it and within 5 seconds know exactly what the problems are. And so I think that's the issue with courses and the one size fits all approach situations is it might work for some people, and that's probably why those communities and courses still exist. But I think for the majority of people, they just end up feeling frustrated and giving up and looking for another solution.
I think the biggest problem with courses is that the truth is other agents can access it. And so if everyone follows the exact same course model and, do the exact same blueprint, you start seeing a bunch of clone channels pop up. And it's like, okay, you guys are all doing the exact same videos with the exact same looking titles, thumbnails, and everything. And the truth is there is only so many leads per market. Generally, what I've just seen is like the agents who are the number one at the top of their market, they crush it so much harder. And it's like a big spinning flywheel effect. You're number one in your market. You've got more resources to reinvest back into YouTube, back into follow-up, into getting better, into staying at the top of the market. It's a huge positive flywheel. And because you're like the number one, the leads trust you way more. It's like you've got way more clout, and it's a huge flywheel. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. That's actually one of the things I look at when wanting to work with other agents is like, okay, I'm looking at your market. Is there one channel that's like monopolizing the market? And if that's the case, it's like, okay, it just got that much harder. And if like an agent tells me like, hey, I'm not sure if I'm committed for the long run, and I look at their market, there's a lot of competition. And it's like, yeah, let's not work together. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough.
So with success on YouTube for real estate agents comes the conversation of scaling. And how do you readjust your business based on the uptick of leads and the management of those leads and how the processes within your business run. So I'm curious, what is your vision for scaling as you continue to grow and bring on more agents to partner with and to help them grow their channels? What does that look like for you?
I'd say I'm very much like a in the weeds type of guy. And I like getting really into the weeds of their business. And there's pros and cons to that. My dream is to work with like a select handful of like elite agents and scale them up to the moon, to the number one within their city. To do that, it's like they also have to be like very competent, also have to be very selective with my partners, since whenever I work with someone, I don't stop working with them. They also need to like have the puzzle to want to grow to a certain amount. And also their market has to allow it too. I mean, I do work with a channel that's like in Lubbock, Texas, and he's the number one channel in his market. But also, I don't think he can ever make over $1 million from selling houses in Lubbock from YouTube, because there's just not that many people moving. And so we're like capped by the market there. I'm pretty picky with the people that I work with. Yeah, I want more people like you. I want more people that like are committed to it and fully want it. And there's a lot of people that like, yeah, YouTube, like, 30% of my business. It's like, no, if we're working together, YouTube's going to be like 90% of your business, or / like referrals from YouTube. And it's like that just because that's what it takes to be the best. Maybe one day I'll sell like some lower ticket offer, but my vision has always been to work with elite realtors and make them even more elite. If you're a new agent and you're thinking about getting onto YouTube and want to know the agent side, I'd recommend you go and talk to Olga. If you're an agent and you already have a YouTube channel and you're looking to grow and scale to number one within your city, well, book a call down below. I'd love to give you a free strategy call and give you a free YouTube audit. Again, I'm looking for long-term partners, so I look forward to seeing you on the call.
And thanks so much, Dylan, for having me today. It's been such a cool conversation. It was so fun to recap our first year working together, and I'm so looking forward to the future and to see what we're going to create in the coming years together.
Thank you. Me too.